This is exactly how you're going to learn to play double stops beautifully and effortlessly. If we haven't met, hi, I'm Megan. I'm a violinist and teacher currently based in New Jersey. I've been playing the violin for over 20 years. I have both my bachelor's and master's degrees in violin performance, and I'm a Suzuki trained teacher. If you're enjoying my videos, please make sure you subscribe to my channel. And if you're looking for more support and guidance along your violin journey, check out my membership, Learn Violin Online, which is always linked in the description. So first of all, what are double stops? Double stops is playing 2 notes at the same time. Only 2 notes. Anything more than 2 is not a double stop, but a chord. It's a little bit ironic when you start learning double stops because when you very first started learning to play the violin, you probably were hitting double stops all the time. And now you've trained yourself so well that when you actually want to hit the double stops, it's a lot harder than it was at first. When you're playing double stops, just because you're playing 2 notes does not mean that you need to apply twice the amount of pressure into the bow. In fact, you want to do the opposite and actually move the bow lighter or more gently or more softly than you would if you were just playing a single note by itself. So up until this point, with your start of double stops, you have learned that there are 4 different elbow levels. Your E string elbow level, your A string elbow level, your D string elbow level, and your G string elbow level. Try saying elbow level 5 times fast. That is in fact not the case. Now that you've added double stops into the mix, there are actually 7 different elbow levels. So elbow level 1 is just E string. Elbow level 2, which is slightly higher, is E and A. Level 3 is just A string. Level 4 is D and A, excuse me. Level 5 is just D string, level 6 is D and G, and then level 7 is just G by itself. So your elbow is going to be in a slightly different placement than you're used to just playing 1 string. Starting out with double stops, you want to just start by playing your open strings. So put your violin up and put your bow on the E string and look at your bow hair. Move your arm and hand up slightly so that you can see your bow hair is on both the E string and the A string. Double check in with your bow hand and make sure that it's really soft and not pressing too hard, and go ahead and play those 2 open strings together. How'd it go? If you heard a really crunchy sound, you're pressing too hard with your hand. If you heard something like this, where your hand was kind of like wobbling back and forth and you weren't hearing both strings sound consistently at one time, your hand was moving up and down instead of in a straight line. Let's repeat with A and D. Put your bow on the A string, gently lift your hand and your arm up so that it's on A and D. Go ahead and play those 2 strings. The same with D and G. Bow on D string, rock it over slightly so it's on both strings, and play. How'd it go? Playing your open strings as double stops is also really great for tuning. After you feel good just playing your open strings with double stops, we are going to add a finger. We're going to play basically a scalar passage on the upper string. And what I mean by scalar passage is just 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I'm going to start on A and E. I'm going to play open, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then back down. You can try it with me if you'd like. Ready, go. When you're doing this, obviously you want to make sure that both strings are sounding at all times, that the sound is not scratchy, and that your finger is not touching any part of the lower string. Let's repeat with A string and D string. Ready, go. Once you feel comfortable with playing the scalar passage on the upper string, we are going to, that's right, you guessed it, play the scalar passage on the lower string. This is going to be a little bit harder because of the left hand. You cannot have your left hand touching the upper string at all, or else it will not sound clearly. What helps me is to move my thumb around or a little bit more underneath the instrument, almost as if I'm going to use vibrato, and also angle my finger slightly more towards the lower string. So I'm going to angle my finger right now that's on A string more towards the D string. You might have to play around with finding the angle that works best for you. Also make sure that your fingers are really on the tip. So let's give it a try. Finger on the lower string on A and E. Ready, go. How'd you do? Let's try on A and D. Ready, go. Good job. And D and G. Ready, go. After you feel good about playing on the lower string, now it's time to have a finger on both strings. At this point with my own personal students, I like to move to the Josephine Trott Melodious Double Stops book. You can find that for free on imslp.org. It's really short, fun exercises, and I used that book when I was a kid too, so it's a little nostalgic for me. When you are playing double stops using two fingers, here's a couple of different practice suggestions. One is just to finger both notes, but only bow one of the lines. So this helps you really hear and isolate the intonation of both lines, because when you're playing double stops together, it can be hard to know which note is out of tune. So when you do that, you can clearly hear which note of the two are out of tune. In particularly tricky double stop passages, I like to verbalize what exactly my fingers are doing. So let's say I was moving from this double stop to this double stop. I would start here and then say something like move 1 to A string, lift 3 and drop 2. Because I really have to know exactly how my fingers are moving. I think that's a hard thing in passages with lots of double stops. You have to decode 2 lines instead of 1, right? And play them at the same time. So that's been really helpful for me. Also, isolating 2 or 3 double stops is going to be really helpful for intonation. Intonation in double stops can be tricky because of the way the violin is tuned. The violin uses just intonation, which means that the intervals or the distance between the notes changes depending on the key and what notes that you are playing together. So my favorite example for this is if I played open E and B, first finger on the A string. That's in tune. But if I leave my 1 right where it is and then play D and B, that's not in tune. My B is too high. So I have to move it back for that to be in tune. So this is all to say, when you're playing double stops, you can't always 100% rely on where you're used to placing the finger. You have to really go by how the interval sounds rather than the finger placement, because it could be slightly different than what you're used to. So I hope this is helpful. Comment down below what you find hardest about double stops or your favorite way to practice double stops. Thank you so much for watching, and please make sure you're subscribed before you go.